What if I told you there was a momentum in history where heaven and earth stood still, and a mother's love met divine sorrow in silence? This isn't just a story. It's a sacred vision, witnessed by someone chosen to see what few ever will, ready to step into a moment so holy, time itself seemed to weep. Dear brothers and sisters, today I share with you a sacred vision that unfolded not in imagination, but in spiritual revelation. It was received by the blessed mystic Anne Catherine Emmerich on Good Friday, the 30th of March, 1820. A vision so vivid and deeply moving, it draws us into the most intimate and sorrowful chapter of Jesus' Passion. On that solemn day, Sister Anne Catherine was deeply immersed in contemplation, her soul completely absorbed in the moment of Jesus' descent from the cross. So intense was her spiritual experience, she fell into a faint so profound it seemed for a moment as if she had been embraced by death itself. And yet, when she awoke still in the grip of suffering, her voice carried something otherworldly, soft yet clear. It echoed with grace as she whispered, "As I looked upon the body of Jesus resting upon his mother's lap, I thought to myself, look at how strong Mary is. Not even for an instant does she show weakness." Before we dive deeper into this powerful vision, I gently invite you to become part of this spiritual journey. If you're watching this and haven't yet subscribed, please consider joining our growing community of faith and prayer. Your presence matters more than you know. Now, let us return to those sacred, heart-wrenching moments brought to life through the visions of Anne Catherine Emmerich and carefully preserved by the writings of Clemens Brentano. In her vision, Anne Catherine saw the Virgin Mary seated on the bare earth, a coarse blanket beneath her. Her back was gently supported by rolled cloaks. Her right knee was slightly raised, and upon it rested the bloodied, lifeless head of her son, Jesus. His body was laid out across a shroud, broken and battered. For one final time, the Holy Mother cradled the remains of her beloved Son. During his long and agonizing suffering, she had been powerless to ease his pain, unable to even show him signs of affection. But now she kissed him, adored him, held him close, her lips trembling as they met his disfigured flesh. His body, so brutally torn and bloodied, was a map of unimaginable torment. As Mary gazed upon his wounds, her heart bled silently with each one. Beside her, Mary Magdalene, overcome with grief, tenderly leaned her face against Jesus' pierced and sacred feet. Meanwhile, not far from this sorrowful scene, a few faithful followers had withdrawn to a shallow hollow just southwest of Calvary. There, they quietly prepared the materials needed for the burial. Cassius and the converted soldiers stood at a respectful distance, waiting to offer assistance if needed. The Apostle John moved gently between the women and men, passing jars, sponges, clean linens, ointments, and fragrant spices. Among the women helping were Mary of Clopas and Veronica, while Mary Magdalene never once left Jesus' side, not even for a moment. Seated nearby, Mary Salome watched the scene in silence, her eyes full of tears, her soul heavy with grief. Near the group of disciples, there was a charcoal fire, over which rested a container of water. Animal skins were laid out, possibly to be used for wrapping or cleaning. In the depths of her unbearable pain, the Virgin Mary remained composed, radiating a kind of majestic strength. Her spirit did not falter. She could not bear to leave the body of her Son in such a terrible state, and so, with unimaginable tenderness, she began the sacred work of cleansing him. First, she removed the crown of thorns, carefully opening it from the back, and then placed it reverently beside the nails that had pierced his flesh. Using a rounded tool, she gently extracted the thorns that still remained embedded in his head. With sorrow in her eyes, she showed them to the faithful women and disciples who gathered reverently around the instruments of his torment. I saw the Blessed Mother begin to wash the bloodied head and face of the Lord. With a soft sponge, she moistened his hair, loosening the blood that had hardened into clots. As she wiped his sacred body, she saw his wounds anew, her compassion deepened with each gentle stroke. She delicately cleansed his eyes, nostrils, ear-saw filled with blood using a fine linen wrapped around her fingers. She then moved to his half-open mouth, softly washing his tongue, teeth, and lips with reverence, as if afraid to hurt him even now. Then came a moment so tender, so heartbreakingly human. The Virgin began to part her son's hair, dividing it into 3 sections, one for each temple and one for the back of his head. After untangling the locks around his forehead, she smoothed them back, tucking them gently behind his ears. When his head was finally clean, can a mother's hands, trembling yet determined, restore dignity to the broken body of her son? As we enter the final moments of this sacred vision, what unfolds is not just ritual but a love so pure, it pierces time itself. Are you ready to witness one of the most intimate and heart-wrenching acts of devotion ever revealed? With great love and reverence, the sorrowful mother pressed a final kiss onto the cheeks of her lifeless son. Then, gently and with trembling hands, she began to cleanse his neck, shoulders, chest, back, and arms every inch of his tender, wounded body. Each touch carried the weight of a mother's unbearable grief and unshakable love. She lingered especially on his hands, those sacred hands that once healed the sick, fed the hungry, and blessed the children, now pierced, twisted, torn. As she washed each wound, she saw them not just with her eyes, but with her soul, and in doing so, she began to fully grasp the depth of the suffering he had endured. The sight was devastating. His ribs were visible, his joints dislocated, his shoulders torn open by the burden of the cross. The upper part of his most holy body was covered in brutal bruises, welts, and scourge marks. On the left side of his chest, there was a small puncture, the place where the tip of Cassius's spear had exited. On the right side, the large and gaping wound where the spear had entered, piercing straight through his sacred heart. Throughout all of this, Mary Magdalene remained at his feet. She never moved from that sacred place. She washed his feet one final time, this time not with water, but with her tears. She dried them with her hair, kissed them tenderly, and laid her pale face upon them, not daring to touch his body out of deep reverence and sorrow. Meanwhile, the Blessed Virgin, holding her son on her lap, continued the sacred task. After cleansing his head, chest, and feet, she gently covered them with a veil, then began applying precious balms and ointments to his wounds, balms passed to her in silence by the women kneeling before her. Each vial opened carried not only perfume but prayer, and every touch was a farewell wrapped in holy devotion. She anointed not only his wounds, but even his hair, tenderly smoothing it back. Then, taking both of Jesus's hands into her left hand, she pressed deep, reverent kisses onto them. With care, she filled the large, brutal holes made by the nails with ointment, and did the same to the deep gash in his side. And not a drop of water used in this sacred ritual was wasted. The water that had bathed his wounds, filled with the blood of the Lamb, was carefully collected into leather skins. The sponges, too, were squeezed into these vessels. Nothing holy was discarded, nothing sacred ignored. I saw Cassius and the soldiers drawing more water from the pool of Gihon, aiding in this solemn work. Once every wound had been lovingly embalmed, Mary wrapped Jesus's head in fine linens, yet she left his face uncovered still, wanting to gaze upon it. With a trembling hand, she closed his half-open eyes, letting them gently rest upon her palm. Then she closed his mouth, and with a long, sorrowful breath, kissed him again, placing her forehead to his. It was then that John approached her, speaking softly yet urgently. The Sabbath was fast approaching. They needed to complete the burial. With heartbreaking obedience, Mary embraced her son one last time, holding him close with all the strength left in her body, and then she let go. The men stepped forward and lifted the holy remains from her lap, carrying Jesus to the hollow prepared in Golgotha. There, every detail for the burial had been arranged. Left behind in that sacred moment, the Holy Virgin, now covered in her veil, collapsed faintly among the other women, overcome with the weight of grief. Mary Magdalene, as if a part of her very soul had been torn away, stumbled forward with arms outstretched, longing to hold him once more before returning silently to the Virgin's side. The Savior's body was laid upon a woven linen shroud, ready for the tomb. Dear brothers and sisters, these are not just words, they are living echoes of sacred sorrow, witnessed through the visions of Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. They take us beyond what the eyes can see, into the very heart of the Passion, where a mother's love touches the mystery of salvation. Let us not pass by these moments quickly. Let us pause, reflect, and pray. What does this vision stir in your heart? What would you say to Mary in her grief, or to Christ in his silent sacrifice? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read them with reverence. And if you haven't yet, we warmly invite you to subscribe and walk with us in faith. Together, we form a community of prayer, devotion, and hope. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us reach more souls with messages like these. May the love of Christ and the strength of his mother remain in your heart always. Until the next reflection, peace be with you.